Hello guys, I'm CBMF Productions, and today's video is quite a strange one to say the least. We all know around this time of year, all of us like to watch our favorite Christmas or holiday films fitting for the season. And usually people throw in the big classic holiday films that you expect to be played every single year. And I'm definitely guilty of that. But ones that I pop in every Christmas it seems like, that most people outside the horror community don't really acknowledge or recognize, is the Silent Night Deadly Night franchise. Horror franchises get quite a bad reputation, but I completely understand why. Horror is definitely the cheapest genre of film to make. I mean, that's why Blumhouse is so successful. And they usually tend to studios pumping out tons of different horror sequels. They tend to feel the exact same. I mean, look at the 10 Children of the Corn and the 10 Hellraiser films that have been made. Even the biggest franchises like Halloween or Friday the 13th suffer from the same issues. Very rarely do horror franchises leave a unique legacy behind them, unless they become so huge as to become a part of pop culture. And Silent Night Deadly Night strangely falls into that category. With how bizarre and controversial the history of this series gets, and how each of its 6 installments are completely different from the last one. No two films are exactly the same, even if one of them recycles a ton of footage from the first film. And although it's had its moments in popularity, the series has generally remained unnoticed in the general consensus, and is really only relevant in the horror community. I bet the majority of you watching right now don't even know what I'm talking about. But fear no more, viewers, because I'm going to trek you guys through every single one of these installments to really show you how weird this franchise can get. And although the series doesn't have the best quality consistency, it's definitely not something worth forgetting. What I'll be doing throughout this video is I'll be going into the history of each film, the plot, my overall review and rating, and at the end I will do an overview of the franchise and do a ranking also. But let's not waste any more time and get into it. From angry parents, giant bugs, killer toys, memes, a brain jar, and a killer Santa on top of it, this is Silent Night Deadly Night, the weirdest horror franchise of all time. Silent Night Deadly Night just started out as a pitch in the late 70s to early 80s. After the huge success of slasher movies around that time period, from Friday the 13th to Halloween to Prom Night, and many others, it seemed like a good opportunity to get an audience. A guy dressing up as Santa Claus and killing people? I mean, that's just pretty money right there.
Hello! I like money!
Despite it was not the first horror film to have a Santa Claus killer in the lead, it definitely was the one that brought it into the limelight. The film revolves around Billy Chapman. We start out the film seeing him at the age of 5, in his parents' car driving him to a mental hospital in Utah to visit his catatonic grandpa. But when Billy's parents step away to talk to the doctor, he starts talking to Billy about how terrifying Santa Claus is, and if you see him, run.
What about you, boy? You been good all year? You see Santa Claus tonight? You better run, boy. You better run for your life.
So after Grandpa traumatizes Billy, he gets another traumatic experience thrown in his face when a robber dressed as Santa Claus, who we see earlier in the film killing a gas station clerk, kills both of Billy's parents as he hides in the bushes.
Hey, you little bastard!
And they could release him and his infant brother Ricky alive. Then we get to 3 years later in St. Mary's orphanage, as Billy is still coping with his parents' murders, and can't stand Christmas, and gets in trouble constantly for going against the holiday. The main authority of the orphanage, Mother Superior, doesn't believe in Billy's trauma, and rather just put more onto him than he can handle.
Punishment is absolute. Punishment is necessary. Punishment is good.
Drawing Santa being decapitated? Punish! Peeking out 2 25-year-olds who are still in his orphanage making out?
Punish!
Running out of the bedroom after a nightmare?
Punish!
Punching Santa Claus in the face?
You got knocked the fuck out, man!
Punish!
Meanwhile, the good angel on Billy's shoulder, Sister Margaret, believes in Billy's trauma and wants to help him out, but she can't defy Mother Superior's authority. Then we head to a decade later, as Margaret is able to get the now 18-year-old Billy, yeah, like he's supposed to be the same age as me, a job at a local toy store, as we go to a very cheesy 80s montage.
Everybody will be there, and they'll be smiling at me, and I won't need no more on the one side of the door.
But as Christmas season approaches, Billy's trauma spikes up again and he starts acting weird around his coworkers and not getting his work done. Then when Christmas Eve approaches, one of the employees, who was meant to dress up as Santa at the toy store, ends up breaking his ankle.
I just got a call from one of the employees. Seems he went ice skating last night and broke his ankle. He'll be out for the remainder of the season.
Yeah, one of the other 5 employees at this toy store, and you can't bother to give him a name, and Billy has to be the one to don in the Santa suit, and he's not too thrilled about it.
I don't bring toys to naughty children. I punish them severely.
Sure knows how to handle kids. He's great, isn't he?
Then when the store closes for the night, as the employees throw a party, or how the owner politely calls it,
Time to get shit-faced!
Billy's still in a dour state. Then he goes to the back of storage to check on one of his female coworkers who he had a crush on. He sees her getting her blouse torn open just like his mom did, as he snaps and goes up to the coworker that's assaulting her and shows him the Christmas lights. Then after the woman he saves starts insulting him and calling him crazy, he gets a box cutter and stabs her in the chest.
Punishment is necessary, Pamela. It is good.
Killing her like it's a dark weapon boxing video. Then he goes after the other two employees in the store.
Stop! Have a time!
This can't seem to miss.
As he escapes with an axe, as Sister Margaret shows up and sees the aftermath, and she ends up getting the police involved to hunt him down. Meanwhile, Billy goes on a killing spree. 2 teens having sex on the pool table? Punish! A couple of bullies stealing slugs from 2 kids? Punish! A cop that accidentally shot the wrong Santa at the orphanage, who's actually a deaf priest? Punish! A snowman being a snowman? Punish! It all leads to Billy going back to the orphanage to kill Mother Superior for inflicting so much pain onto him, but the chief of police and Sister Margaret show up in time to shoot Billy in the back twice, as he falls over and dies, but not without saying to the children that Santa Claus is gone.
You're safe now. Santa Claus is gone.
As Billy's axe points towards his younger brother Ricky,
Naughty.
and the movie ends. Silent Night, Deadly Night is not as horrifying as people made it out to be for the time. Granted, it's decades later and things have changed since, but I still do enjoy it. What makes this film really work is that it's a lot more substance heavy, and no, I'm not talking about the alcohol, than most other horror films. Getting time to learn about the killer and really show his upbringing into becoming a maniac was very investing, and I found myself genuinely caring for the character. And Mother Superior on the opposite side of that, being one of those villains that you love to hate. The film has a great Christmas atmosphere and it oozes the holiday. From the snow, the set design, and the great Christmas songs created for the film, that feel the right amount of creepy and ironic, that's brilliant. All of this and score for the film fitting the 80s horror aesthetic for the time. The kills are very creative and every one of them is unique, and does have many memorable moments that have stuck with me since I watched it for the first time a few years back. And you can tell this was made by actual filmmakers, just from the way the film is directed and also written. And it has a lot more going on than just the thrill of seeing somebody being impaled with deer antlers. But you also get that in there too to balance out the scale. But what does bring the film down for me is that it definitely feels like 2 different films smashed into one, and that the tone really doesn't feel that consistent. Mainly due to the fact that the credited director for the film didn't like horror movies, it wasn't very comfortable shooting kill scenes. So the second unit director, who was also the editor, had to shoot the horror side of things. And you can definitely tell the difference when those scenes happen. With how much this film is banked on being this character study about this kid going insane, and really taking its time to set up this world, once Billy snaps it feels like a completely different film. Mainly from how Billy just says "Punish!" or and that's all he says for the rest of the film, besides his little speech before he dies. And also how he just kills random people for no rhyme or reason. As I said earlier, why did he kill the couple making out on the pool table? Is he an angry virgin? I don't really think it'd be hard for that guy to find somebody. Why did he kill the woman he had a crush on, or any of the other co-workers? It would have been nice if Billy had a moral code like Dexter, and really only killed people that really truly deserved it. And even the people that destroyed Billy's life and deserved to die, such as the killer Santa in the opening or Mother Superior, don't even get their justice. So as a revenge film, it's just kinda weak. Not to mention you can definitely feel the film pushing its runtime to barely feature length. Mainly from how much build-up we do get, and from how much the kills are spaced out, the film is so much extra padding. The best example I can give you is the scene towards the end with a cop who's checking the premises, the orphanage, and I'm not kidding, for a solid 5 to 7 minutes, it's just this cop slowly going around the building and checking doors, and then slowly going to the shed that has a basement, and slowly walking around it, before going upstairs and finally getting an axe in his chest. It's stuff like that that brings this film down for me. Along with the feeling outdated in spots, not having the best acting, forgettable side characters, just having a lot of your average slasher fare. But overall, it's a good film in my opinion, and if you're a fan of the horror genre and haven't checked it out yet, I recommend you check it out for the holiday season. I give Silent Night, Deadly Night a B, a 7.5 out of 10, and a Red Tint recommendation. So with how many sequels this movie spawned, you expect it would have been a big success, right?
Wrong!
You see, when this film was being advertised, parents got angry over seeing Santa Claus with an axe, and decided to boycott the film to protect the children. Despite it was an R-rated movie, there were multiple boycotts across the country, with parents literally picketing the film outside of theaters and trying to get the film pulled from them, almost sending angry letters and phone calls to the studio that made the film. Meanwhile, TriStar, the company that distributed the film, didn't plan on pulling it as it was doing immensely well, given its budget and the fact that it was in limited release. But it still managed to outperform the original Nightmare on Elm Street on its opening weekend. But due to the backlash growing, and one of the companies that owned TriStar, a little company called Coca-Cola, because of their iconic Christmas campaigns and not wanting his paths crossed, they forced them to pull its theatrical release, and it took the producer, Ira Richard Barmack, which the toy store in the film is named after him, had to get the rights from the studio to put it on the video in 1986, and sold the rights up to a completely different studio, to where we get some very, very interesting sequels that we're going to talk about.
Oh, there you are!
Oh God, help me. So after the modest success of the first film, despite the controversy, mainly from its spike in home video sales, the producers who owned the first film wanted to recut the original film and just sell it off as its own sequel. But the director Lee Harry demanded that they would shoot at least some new footage to tie it in with the old footage. So they had to get whatever talent they could find and just shoot the film within 10 days. And after it was put together and released, the film kind of remained in obscurity for decades, until this infamous clip popped up on YouTube.
Garbage day! Huh? No!
And Inside 2 became a cult classic, in a very odd way. From getting his own Shout Factory Blu-ray release a couple years ago, just like the first film, an entire hunt for the main star of the film, Eric Freeman, called Finding Freeman, and if you know this film, you know why.
Mother Superior! I've got a present for you!
After a commentary on the 2003 DVD stated from the director that they couldn't track the guy down for the commentary, and some reviewers giving this film a second life after it faded into irrelevance back in the 80s and 90s. But if you don't know about this film, you may be wondering, what's about this film that makes it so special? Well, let's get into it. The film starts at an institution 3 years after the events of the first film, where we see a now 18-year-old Ricky. What genes do these brothers have that I'm missing out on? Played by the one and only Eric Freeman, who delivers lines like a Duke Nukem knockoff.
Fuck off, Doc.
My time is very valuable.
Oh. And mine isn't?
Time to squeeze my own balls.
And whose eyebrows move more than an EKG spike. Ricky gets introduced to his 13th psychiatrist, Dr. Henry Bloom, who brings his trusty tape recorder with him, and wants Ricky to tell the story of his life and how he got here.
Who killed your parents?
Santa Claus.
And for at least 40 minutes, he does so the producers can push this to feature length. As we get a close-up version of what happened in the first film, as Ricky recollects his parents' murder when he was an infant, and also recollects Billy's murders that he wasn't even present at. Then after the halfway mark, we finally get into the new story of Ricky. After a complete actor switch, he gets adopted by a family that doesn't celebrate Christmas, and had a normal upbringing, but when he was 15, his foster dad died of unknown causes. And while he sulks around the woods, he sees a couple having a picnic, as the boyfriend starts to get all rapey on his girlfriend, as Ricky gets flashbacks from Billy's memories, or I guess it's just a very powerful memory.
But what would happen if, for some reason, we ignore somebody unlocked 100% of the cerebral capacity?
Naughty.
So Ricky gets into the boyfriend's red Jeep after he stops his assault to get a beer, as Ricky runs him over multiple times, killing him. Then the girlfriend thanks Ricky for what he did, as they both walk away.
Thank you.
And all Dr. Bloom can think of is that damn red car.
Red car. Good point.
Then we get to Ricky, now in a timeline as a fully grown Eric Freeman, working at a restaurant taking out the trash on Garbage Day! As he sees a loan shark beat the shit out of some guy who misses payment in an alleyway. Then as he messes with Ricky some, and wipes his forehead with a red handkerchief, which they call the red in this film triggers him like a bull, due to the sensation he experienced as a kid from the first film. As he grabs a loan shark and stabs him through the chest with an umbrella as it opens up, covered with blood as it rains out after. Perfect. Then we get to the next part of the story when he met his girlfriend at the time, Jennifer, when she bumped into his bike in the parking lot, and he gets super angry until he sees her. Then they ride together in sunny California, pretending to be Utah, as they have the slowest
Sex ever.
I guess he got that passed on from his brother. Then they have a date in the movie theater as they are watching the first movie?
What did you say this movie was about?
Oh, it's great. It's about this guy who dresses up like Santa Claus and kills people.
What?
I'm holding you up, asshole.
Yeah, like that makes sense. As an annoying attendee keeps pissing off Ricky, to the point where he sneaks to the back row to push his friend out of the way, who so happens to be the director of the film, as he dies from...
Naughty.
reasons. But as Ricky is summoning the guy in the back seat, Jennifer's ex-boyfriend Chip shows up to taunt her and get her back, but it doesn't work here. Then we get to Jennifer and Ricky walking together in a neighborhood, as Chip and his red Mustang mess up their day, as Chip describes how he and Jennifer made out in the back of his car.
That's enough. Listen, bud. That's what she said when I fucked her brains out. Backseat of old Red here.
And with that Ricky thought Jennifer was a virgin, he snaps. Well... He snaps again, and shows the Chip and his shades, as he fries his head with jumper cables, and his eyes and his shades explode out of his head. Then Jennifer screams at Ricky for how crazy he is.
I hate you, Ricky.
Punishment is absolute.
I hate you.
Punish.
Uh-oh.
And then Ricky decides to choke her to death with a car antenna. Then he gets shot by Rent-A-Cop, who clearly gets shot in the head, and then Ricky grabs his pistol and then goes on a shooting spree, including shooting at an innocent man just taking out the trash, and also managing to blow up a car like he just caused 3. Before he stops at the police, as he turns the gun towards himself. and that's how he ended up here. As we reveal that Ricky joked at Dr. Bloom while he was narrating his story at some point. How do you think that took place?
So then there was this guy who was taking out his goddamn trash.
Then Ricky manages to get out of the institution and kills a Salvation Army Santa and takes his suit as he prank calls one superior.
Hello? Merry Christmas. Santa's back.
Who's now retired from the orphanage and lives alone, bound to a wheelchair because she had a stroke at some point. I'm sorry, when does having a stroke give you a goblin face? As Ricky breaks through her house at 666 whatever street and gives her the punishment that Billy didn't give, as Eric Freeman tries his best to act like Jack Nicholson.
Oh, good. I love a chase.
Then the cops and another nun arrive at the house as she finds one superior's body, but when she tries to touch her shoulder, her head falls clean out without any blood trace, as Ricky raises his axe at her, as the cops shoot him multiple times as Ricky falls out a patio window and is supposedly dead. But the film ends with Ricky opening his eyes and smiling at the camera as we cut to credits. And that's Silent Night Deadly Night Part 2. A terrible robot that I barely even considered to be a film, has terrible acting, cheap production value, not scary in the slightest, has terrible writing and directing, and it's one of the worst films ever made. But goddamn, is it so entertaining. It is one of the best bad movies ever made. If the footage hasn't already shown you how bonkers this film is, I have no idea what will. Although I understand if you're fresh with how much footage is used from the first film, even it seems where it completely ruins the continuity of the universe. Technically, it doesn't technically require you to watch the first film because this film is a double feature in and of itself. Plus, Ricky's commentary does add extra entertainment value.
She was naughty.
Speaking of, Eric Freeman as the star of the film is an absolute blast to watch.
I don't sleep.
He's so goofy, and the fact that he's not even in on the joke is brilliant. And every action this guy makes is memorable, and he really is what makes the film worth watching. Despite the fact he uses so much from the first film, it's a lot more fast paced because the film basically just takes the highlight moments of the first film and combines it with this new story and footage, which is even more enjoyable. The banter between the Shrink and Ricky is priceless. With how unpredictable Ricky will react to Dr. Bloom's questions.
Punishment. Discipline.
Denied!
The kills are also very creative, and the low budget adds to the charm of the film. That works for a so bad as good feel to it. And Monster Superior finally getting her justice is nice to see as well. Despite the fact I won't argue in the fact that the first one is definitely better, Silent Night 2 for me is a must watch every single December alongside my favorite Christmas movies of all time. Because of how much of a ride this film takes me on, and how it just makes me laugh for how much of a black comedy it is. And no other film in the series, and most films in general, doesn't really capture the absurdity this film admits.
Really? Well, maybe we're just jerking off here then. Huh? Do say so.
And it's a film that you must watch at least once in your lifetime, especially with friends. I give Silent Night Deadly Night Part 2 an A+, a 10 out of 10, and a must-watch recommendation. So despite Silent Night 2 barely received a theatrical release, the producers that owned the rights saw more opportunity to make more sequels, and a couple years later after Part 2, this film became a 3-year streak of these sequels being released direct-to-video, in an era when the direct-to-video sequel market was extremely new. And this film would be the last in the series to retain the Billy Ricky storyline, with parts 4 or 5 going the season of the witch route, which we'll get to later. The producer got Mousy Hellman, who you may not recognize, but he's not a law work in the industry. From shooting extra versions for TV versions of movies, back when they did that, for movies like A Fistful of Dollars, he was a second-unit director on RoboCop, the original one, and he would also go on to be an executive producer on Reservoir Dogs. He was estimated to film in 3 months. The script was rewritten in the week after the original idea for the film, that would end up being Part 4, got thrown out. The film was shot in the next month and then edited in another month. In retrospect, the film started writing in March and ended up finishing editing by May, and was already being screened for film festivals as early as July, and would end up hitting VHS in November 1989. But does this film continue the legacy of Garbage Day and wrap up this Killer Santa trilogy in a nice little bow? Well, let's find out. The film is set 6 years after the events of Part 2, where Rick has been in a coma since, and partly from getting shot in the chest and falling out of a patio window, his skull had to be extracted from his head and his brain reconstructed in this glass dome. And it's no longer played by Eric Freeman, but horror alumni Bill Moseley. The film starts with this Dr. Newberry character doing an experiment linking Ricky's mind to a blind girl's Laura, who has second sight and can see the future of who Ricky will kill. And because of her second mind, oh yeah, I forgot to mention that too, Ricky is awakened after a few test sequences in the opening dream sequence of her running through a series of white rooms, and more archive footage from the first film. Like we haven't seen enough of these parents' murders.
I want a Barbie doll and a Mickey Mouse watch and a doll.
Whoa, that's a lot of screaming. I really hope she doesn't do that for the rest of the movie. Fuck! After she leaves the hospital to go on a trip with her brother, Chris, and his new girlfriend, Jerry, to their grandma's place.
It was nice to meet you anyway. Chris tells me you're psychic. Chris tells me you give great head.
Jesus, Laura.
where Ricky awakens after being visited by a drunk hospital Santa who makes fun of him.
Hey, vegetable! Who's your favorite singer? Perry Como?
Boo!
He gets up and kills him, in the first of many off-screen kills throughout the movie, along with his receptionist, and manages to walk out of the hospital slowly, and I mean
slowly.
Walks, hitchhikes, and slashes his way to Laura's grandma's place. In his hospital gown no less. And not wearing a Santa suit, because I guess we don't want a killer Santa in this Christmas horror series. As Dr. Newberry and Lieutenant Connolly also chase after Ricky and tries to make it to Laura before Ricky gets to her. But Ricky makes it to grandma's place first, as she prepares him a meal, but when she gives Ricky a red present, she gets killed because the color red triggers him, being the only characteristic carried over from the previous movie. Grandma, I didn't want this shirt, I wanted your framed picture of MLK on the wall. Then Laura, Chris, and Jerry show the grandma gone, as Laura tries to find her because she feels like something's off.
This chair's out of place.
The chair's always right there by the fireplace.
How can she tell?
We grew up in this house. She knows every inch of it by heart.
The chair should be here.
But Chris and Jerry are like, nah, let's just make out in a tiny bathtub before we're supposed to have dinner at your grandma's place. Meanwhile, Connolly and Newberry are still going after Laura, as Newberry is basically a knockoff Dr. Sartain from Halloween 2018, and not wanting to kill Ricky, but study him, as the lieutenant is the complete opposite of that. But Newberry takes off in Connolly's car while he's taking a piss break, to not let him kill Ricky. Meanwhile, the three main characters at Grandma's place try to find Grandma, armed with a shotgun after they get more uncomfortable with Grandma being gone. And while walking outside, Chris is attacked by Ricky and stabbed. Soon, Dr. Mary finds Ricky and tries to calm him down, but only ends up being stabbed in the process. Laura and Jerry barricade themselves in the house like it's strangers, as they head upstairs while Jerry goes to find another gun. You know what, Jerry, you just go looking for a gun in the house where I know when the chair's been moved 2 feet too far. But I can't see where our guns are. Oh me, I'm so stupid. She wanted her dead. Then Ricky chases after her some more until she moves to the basement and pulls a "you're next" on his ass and takes out all the lights, blinding him like her, despite there's still a gigantic light coming from the hallway.
Do you have any light bulbs?
As Chris comes back from the dead and says,
Hey, Bubblehead!
Is it live or is it Memorex?
whatever the hell that means. As he quickly gets choked out by the shotgun, and as Ricky turns to kill Laura, she holds a piece of a broken stick as... he trips on a stick?
You serious?
That nigga was reaching for his life.
This same character that was able to survive multiple gunshot wounds to the chest and walk hundreds of miles is stopped by a slapstick joke? Great job, movie! So after that climax that makes the ending of War of the Worlds actually satisfying, Laura said by Connolly and the other police there, as Connolly sees Dr. Newberry's dying breath. What, like you? Then Laura's placed in Connolly's car, as we see a body being hauled away to the hospital, because the paramedics say they have a chance of saving him, being unclear if it's Ricky or Chris. As we end the movie with Laura being driven away, saying,
Merry Christmas.
And Ricky in the tux saying,
And a happy new year.
Movie, stop trying to be clever, you already lost me 90 minutes ago. And that's Silent Night, Deadly Night 3, Better Watch Out, from the snooze fest of a movie. Silent Night 3 is an incredibly dull experience in my opinion, and by far the worst film in this franchise. The film has barely anything to offer us in terms of entertainment value. You can tell this was a rush job on the cheap with how slow this one's at a pace to make it in 90 minutes. Wanna see Grandma baste a turkey in her kitchen for 5 minutes? Wanna see this couple make out in a tiny bathtub? Wanna see this gas station clerk talk dirty to his girlfriend on the phone? And then Ricky decapitates him and he puts his severed head next to his girlfriend's phone? That's funny enough, I'll give the movie that. All the kills are lackluster because all of them are off-screen kills. Hell, one of them actually uses a ketchup bottle with a blood effect. You can even hear the sounds of it. The characters we do get have the personality still bred, and minus some interesting banter between the doctor and the lieutenant, all the dialogue is so generic, and the actors don't do anything to spice it up. And it's especially disappointing that our main villain Ricky, played by an actual good actor in Bill Moseley, is just wasted here. He could have channeled some of that fun energy that Eric Freeman had in part 2. I mean, have you seen what the guy did in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2?
Hey, lick my plate, you dog dick!
And the fact that they take such a fun slasher villain and take away all of his one-liners and personality, and apart from the very end, all he says is... You could have gotten any stunt double to do what he did. And the fact that he gets killed by falling on a stick, no less, and not even in a cool way, he just bends over. It's unsatisfying reading the ending of Ricky's story. And the Halloween 5 knockoff psychic link connection between our main girl Laura, who all she does is just scream throughout the movie, and Ricky basically just goes nowhere because it's just an excuse for some cool visual images in the opening. So in conclusion, it's just a poor man's Halloween movie. The only redeeming things about it are that it still has that Christmas horror atmosphere to it, and I do like that it does continue the story of the first two films, along with having some solid directing, especially in the opening scene, showing this director actually has experience, and the score is pretty good too, especially the end credits music, which is an absolute chilling banger. But otherwise, you can just skip this film because it's extremely dull and forgettable. I give Silent Night, Deadly Night 3, Better Watch Out, a D, a 3 out of 10, and a skipper recommendation. But do you know what the most terrifying part of this film is?
Silent Night, Deadly Night, Part 3.
$90?